Today on the Nerdy Gritty, in honor of Free Comic Book Day, we talk what the best way to get into comics is.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I'm Fox.
I am Batman.
Are you? You are wearing a Lego Batman t-shirt.
I am wearing a Lego Batman
so
t-shirt.
So that is the requirement, actually.
Yep.
That's all it takes.
And, well, I mean, I also really am Batman. So, but
I know,
don't tell
because
anybody.
of your t-shirt.
Right, but don't tell anybody.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Just make sure that we keep this
Right. Nobody
us.
listens to this anyway. So.
Between us and our...
This is the same as not
tens
saying
of
anything
listeners.
at all.
Oh, man. Well, Fox, I have some fun news for us.
You have fun news.
Well, I mean, this isn't news for us. This is news for listeners, because you know this. We recently just received a game that we kickstarted.
Yeah.
And it was pretty fun. So it's called Siege Storm Siege Mode. Siege Storm is a game that's been out for a little while now, but there's a new spin on it called Siege Mode that allows for single player and co-op modes on top of the actual normal base game. And Fox and I got to play it last night.
Played it a couple rounds last night.
Yeah, and it was pretty fun, man.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
My biggest thing about it is it's a quick game. For this kind of game, it's about 20-25 minutes when we got to know how to play it. And I like that.
And I imagine it's going to go even faster when we
if we get to know the cards even more
get
and stuff.
It nailed down.
Yeah, 100%. That's my favorite part of it. This is maybe the first Kickstarter that I've ever actually received. I've Kickstarted like 5 things.
And you've never received?
No. Okay, there's none that I haven't received.
Okay.
This is just the first one that I kickstarted that I've gotten.
I kickstarted a while back. My wife and I. It was a handmade dice rolling tray and dice holder. And the way it worked was it was a 2-sided like sandwich box, wooden box, handcrafted. And on one side there were like shelving slots where you could put all of your dice into it. And then the other side was just felt lined, and it was a rolling box when you took them apart from each other.
Right.
And it was like, I think we did the $50 backing, and that got us like the upgraded felt choices and the upgraded stain choices.
Okay.
And we each got one. And we were a little disappointed, to be honest.
Oh, really? You actually got it?
Yeah, we actually got it.
Okay.
But we were a little disappointed.
Yeah, that is something we should talk about in the future. I think it could go along with early access also, just like pros and cons of, paying for something before it's actually finished or completed,
Right.
What's going to happen? What should you look for in one that you can trust, that kind of stuff.
Well, anyway, Fox, what have you been up to?
A little bit. So first things first, I accidentally watched 2 movies about serial killers this weekend.
Oh.
And by accidentally, I mean, I watched these 2 movies and then realized these are both about trying to find serial killers. And they were both it was Silence of the Lambs and Zodiac.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Are you side-eyeing everybody you know now?
No.
Okay.
No. This is like... my wife was like, I thought you were going to not watch horror movies anymore. And they're not really horror movies.
No, yeah,
I mean,
this isn't really
and
that.
it's also not really the type of horror, even if it was, that really affects me.
Right.
That's more about the supernatural type realm. I can watch slasher movies or whatever. But but there's just something, and I think it's kind of common right now with these whole like Ted Bundy tapes and the Ted Bundy like fictionalized movie that just came out on Netflix like this week or last week. It's kind of a thing right now of like a fascination with serial killers.
Yeah,
it's like
weird.
this morbid curiosity that our society kind of has. I definitely feel like it's just interesting to me to see the psychology there, even if it is a made up psychology, like Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, not
like,
a real person.
Yeah, but it's heavily based in because that's not about Hannibal Lecter. It's about Clarice Starling trying to find Ted Bundy and having this relationship, trying to find Buffalo Bill. But I loved both of those movies.
I asked the question earlier because whenever I watch movies like that, I end up just in the back of my brain giving people the side eye. Get Out did that to me. I watched Get Out, and afterward, especially as a person of color, it just
you were just looking at me like, am I trying to steal your brain?
You trying to hypnotize me because I'm a brown man?
No, I wouldn't want your brain.
No, that would be a bad. I mean,
or I wouldn't want your body.
Yeah, pick one that is not in constant pain.
I'm gonna need a better one than that.
one that's better put together. Okay, I want this one, but please just replace the whole back area. Just all of it. Just take the spine out and put a new one in. Okay, I have been playing Division 2. You and I talked about this.
You always are playing Division 2
right,
now.
so I have a weekly stream of
do.
Division 2, and it's every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time. So you should come hang out with us for that.
Sure.
Twitch.tv/dezandfoxplay. Anyway, I've been playing for a while. Me and my friends have been playing for a long time, and I finally hit the level cap of 30.
Right.
You can't level up any more than this. And I thought, cool. Well, maybe after I hit this level cap, maybe we'll do 1 or 2 more streams and then pick a different game. You know, when you're not leveling, there's not going to be too much more content, whatever, yada, yada. I hit this level cap and found out that was essentially the tutorial for the game. And it says, okay, now that you've hit the level cap, pick your specialization. And there are 3 different specializations, and each one has its own skill tree.
Yeah.
And you can switch between the specializations whenever you want. So you can only have 1 active at a time, but you can switch between them at any time.
Sure.
Well, at any time that you want to go back to the White House.
Back to the White House.
Yeah, and so there's just this like whole new leveling system.
Quote unquote end game content.
Well, but end game content almost in as much as because now a new type of enemy is introduced.
Okay.
And they give you this really quick cutscene, is about 20 seconds, but basically the communication is, hey, a new guy's come in and they've taken over everything. So now everything that you know is now higher level, higher difficulty.
Okay, yeah.
Some of them have mechs. Like, what the crap is this?
Ah.
Yeah, like maybe not full on mech, like little robot
Sure.
things, and now you have new enemies, new types. Like it's almost like a DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just part of the extra game. So I was really excited about that.
I went out on Saturday to Free Comic Book Day. I went to 4 different shops around here in Portland and got with the books I was able to get from Free Comics and also my monthly pickup, which 5 weeks worth of comics. I came home with like 60 books.
Yeah.
A lot of comics. The most exciting of which is War of the Realms. War of the Realms started. We're halfway through it. We're 3 out of 6 of the main series.
Right.
And it's essentially a quick synopsis. Malekith, the king of the Dark Elves, he was the main villain in Thor 2, The Dark World. He was less cool in that. But
a lot of things were less cool in that.
Sure. Which is fine because they worked well for the MCU, but
right.
He has over a certain amount of time been leading his armies across the 10 realms of the Marvel Norse mythology, the Marvel world tree. There are 10 realms, and he has razed 9 of them to the ground.
Ooh.
And he is now the final assault on Midgard. And that's where the War of the Realms is taking place.
All right.
And it's essentially, the entire Marvel universe, 616, the main universe, fighting against Malekith and his armies, which include, the fire goblins of Muspelheim and, all these different, all the different factions, the ice giants and trolls and, all these people. Even the angels of heaven are on his side.
That's cool.
Yeah. Because heaven is in the Marvel universe, the secret 10th realm.
Mm-hmm.
And for a big universe spanning event, which happen fairly often, once a year, generally have one big thing like this.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah. That's something I've always said is that Marvel Comics does the overarching, like, all-inclusive stories better.
Yeah.
But DC does that. This is about one person and his walk through this one thing.
The problem is they don't really do the one person, his or her storyline anymore. I've been reading Wonder Woman, starting with Rebirth.
Right.
I read the first 4 or 5 books of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, and then like Justice League and Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
So like those 3 and the big things that they're part of. And very rarely was it just Batman doing a thing or Superman doing a thing. Wonder Woman was pretty specific to her and her and that was by far the best out of what I read. But Batman, there was always like, it's the Bat family. And so now you're reading about Batman, Batwoman, Robin, Clayface is in there at some point as a good guy. Like all these different things. And
team.
They don't do that very much anymore.
I have also been playing a lot more Slay the Spire. And that game, gosh, I talked about it a little bit last week too, but its content is just so fresh every time. Even if they hadn't added any new content, the way that they do their dailies presents a new challenge every single time, and it feels like you're doing something new every single time.
Yeah.
But still in the same flavor of what you're doing, and I cannot get enough of that game.
All right.
I love it a lot. I really do.
Cool.
Okay, I feel like there was one more thing that I wanted to mention, a movie that I saw, but I don't remember. So
I got nothing.
Nope, I got nothing either. So I think are you ready to get down to the nerdy?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's
wait. All right, now we can do it.
Okay, cool.
Actually, no, we can't, because first, really quick, I want to tell you guys about our Patreon.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this right now, then we want to let you know that we have a Patreon, and for our $5 and $10 a month subscribers, we have a director's cut of the podcast that has a whole lot more of what we talked about before this. And so if you like hearing us kind of rant on or have conversations about DC versus Marvel comics and how they write, or about
Kickstarter,
or
the
Hannibal
movies,
Lecter,
me watching serial killers murder people.
Right. Then no, wait, whoa, what? Movies.
In the movies. In movies. I gotta go.
Then we would really appreciate your guys' support. Or even at the $1 a month, you do get a lot of Patreon exclusive content that we're putting up. We'll be putting up some new game stuff.
Some Clash. We played Siege Storm like we talked about. We're going to be putting that up on Patreon, early access.
Early access stuff for that pretty soon here. So we would really, really appreciate your guys' support for that. If that's not something you can do, we totally understand. We always appreciate when you rate us on whatever you're listening to this on, or when you share, comment, like, subscribe, whatever else.
All those things.
All really, really helps us.
Smash those various buttons.
Yeah. Smash them with your fist.
Yeah, with a hammer.
So, recently, Free Comic Book Day happened.
Yeah, Free Comic Book Day 2019. It's a wonderful day of the year.
If you don't know what Free Comic Book Day is, the name is self-explanatory.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
It's a day in which a lot of comic book, in fact, almost all comic book distributors and publishers.
Big major ones.
A lot of small ones, too, though.
Occasionally. Yeah, usually the smaller ones will be like subsidiaries of the bigger ones.
That's true. That's fair. But they put out like an example issue or an introductory
or just issue number one.
Or issue number one to whatever storyline, whatever cover that they have. And they give them out for free.
Yep. You go to a store and they will just have a big table, and you usually have a limit of books you can get. It depends on the store.
Right.
But you just get some free comics.
Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because it was awesome, but I was camping with my boy. He and I went camping, and
sucker.
We had some good father-son bonding time.
Cherish those memories, idiot. I got free comics like a cool person.
Yeah, how many did you get?
I went to 4 shops for a total of, with the limits at the stores, 25 books.
25 books.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I wanted one of everything, but that wasn't in the cards. I got everything that I really wanted, and a few that I was like, okay, sure, I guess I'll take this too. But I wanted one of everything.
Right.
As I usually do. But yeah, so there were a total of 51 official Free Comic Book Day sponsored books that were put out. You can go on their website. They usually release what books are going to be available beforehand. And so, yeah, I went to 4 different shops, and it's just a great time of year, or a great day of the year, because it's not just like, here's some books, but usually shops will have an event. Like, I went to, usually they'll have a sale or something, or another, but,
Things from Another World?
Things from Another World. They had somebody there, like, making balloon animals for all the kids, because a big focus of it is also that there's a large selection of family-friendly titles.
Yeah.
Usually most of these are going to be like licensed stuff, SpongeBob or whatever, Pokemon. There's Lumberjanes this year, which is an original title, but it's family friendly. But it's always a fun time. There's just a big event at most of these shops. Lots of people are going to be there. But we want to talk about, because of this, because I wasn't able to get like 2 of everything, because that was our original plan, was to get a set for Dez as well, and then read. And last year we kind of did like a review of our favorites, or just some of them that we read.
Yeah.
We're going to do it a little differently this year. And because Free Comic Book Day is in large part to get people give people an in to comics. Like, okay, I'm not actually putting any money into it, so what's it gonna hurt? I'll try it out. We're gonna talk about our advice, basically, for the best ways to get into reading comic books.
So if you are somebody who has maybe watched some Marvel movies, or maybe you like the DCEU for some reason.
Yeah, you're Zack Snyder specifically.
Maybe you are Zack Snyder. I am a DC
First of all, thank you for watching or listening.
Zach,
I love Watchmen and I love 300 and I had some problems with it, but I did really like Sucker Punch, and your Dawn of the Dead remake was really great also. But stop making your DC movies.
I think DC stopped. I think they're like, look, we need to
get somebody else.
You need to go. But you need to go now.
Yeah, you go home, man.
So if you have heard a lot or have been on the outskirts of getting into comics, and now you're thinking to yourself, I really want to try getting into comic books, but it's so intimidating.
Yes, it is. It very much is. In fact, I've been reading comics most of my life. I got Ultimate Spider-Man. I think like magazines will do occasionally, where it's just randomly send you a free year subscription to kind of get you to keep subscribing. I got a subscription to Ultimate Spider-Man for a year, but I do not remember ever, I'm pretty sure I remember being surprised by it, and I was like, awesome. I really wish I kept it because it was like the first issue. Like it was the first 12 issues. So saying that, I've been into comics for most of my life. When I wanted to start getting into the DC universe to try to get some Superman stories and Batman stories, I had no idea where to go. Like, what do I do? Because there's so many options and jumping in points and universes and all these things. So I think it's good to kind of let people know, hey, there are ways to do this.
Absolutely. So let's start just from the real base. Let's say you're a person, Fox, that has...
Wait, hold on. I got to pretend I'm a person? I can't do it.
Can't get in that headspace.
Nope.
Now, let's say you're a person who has heard and has the real base knowledge about a lot of these heroes, but you never really got into the MCU or the DCEU or anything like that, but you do want to try and read these comics. How would you suggest? What would be some starting steps that you would say?
There's several different ways. If you are, pick a character. Pick one that is interesting to you. Maybe you saw Iron Man, and maybe you saw Endgame, and Iron Man's significant to you because of it. For reasons. I know we can officially do spoilers now, but I'm still not going to.
Yeah, no.
So I'll just go with Iron Man, and then buy a recent Iron Man book. There's a lot of practical things we'll get into, but I think a major thing is just start reading something. Because if you try to get the original or you want to start from the beginning, yeah, that's not practical. Most of these major comics have been going on for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. So don't expect to start from the beginning. That's you'll get burnt out real quick because comics from 60 years ago were very different than what they are now. So just buy a book. Go to a shop. Specifically go to a comic book shop. You can read lots of internet opinions and just go to Amazon, but somebody who works at a comic book shop is going to know exactly what you should read if you just want to jump into this character.
Yeah, that would actually be one of my biggest recommendations. Is a lot of times people think that sweaty nerds that are elitists and gatekeepers are going to be the people that are at comic book shops, but actually for the most part, people who work at comic book shops are really friendly and are really excited to have somebody new who wants to get in the hobby. If you walk in and you say, and obviously I'm making a generalization, there are going to be jerks out there.
Sure, 100%.
But for the most part, if you walk in and you say, hey, I have no idea, but I'd like to start, they're going to be stoked to help you.
100%.
They're going to be really excited to have somebody new who's going to be a part of this hobby that they love.
Yeah.
And so go in, ask somebody, and just say, hey, I'd like to start. Then give them as much information as you have on where you want to start.
Sure.
Maybe your start is I don't really want to start with superheroes. I want to kind of start somewhere else. Or maybe it is, I specifically really like the MCU.
Guardians of the Galaxy was hilarious.
Yeah. And so what do you recommend?
Because think about it. People who start comic book shops, they're starting a shop. They're not just I want to keep this to myself. They want to share it with other people.
I want to open this public store, but then only people
people who already know about it. I'll have a guard at the door giving a quiz.
A
to
literal
everybody.
gatekeeper.
And also, they love what they do. There are no major nationwide comic book shop chains.
Yes.
There's not just, there's GameStop, and that you might need to know about games, but mostly they're looking for somebody who
Sales.
just
As
be
somebody
a
who has
salesperson.
been a hiring manager at a GameStop, we don't give a crap if you know about games or not.
Yes.
We care if you can sell. I'll teach you about games.
Right. Or you can you had the opportunity to rent them, right, basically from your store.
We did. Yeah.
Yes,
as
the employees. So they give you the ability to do that, but that doesn't exist for comic book shops.
Right,
There is no comic stop.
There is exactly.
So you're probably very likely going to a very local place.
Mhm.
The most I've ever heard of like franchises for a comic shop, I think, is 4. And that was Atomic Comics in Phoenix, Arizona, where I used to go. Rest in peace. Stay sweet, Atomic Comics.
Pour one out for one's home.
Yeah, if you've watched the movie Kick-Ass and recognize the name Atomic Comics, they stole it. They didn't steal it, but they took that from a chain in Chandler, Phoenix, Arizona.
It started in Mesa, Arizona. I
Yes,
think.
yeah, Mesa.
But
The Phoenix area.
Long story short, they were awesome. They were great.
Yeah.
And somebody without insurance accidentally drove the car into a shop, and since they had
Drove
no
it
insurance,
through the front window.
Yep. And since they had no insurance, Atomic Comics had to pay.
They couldn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it, and they just had to shut down.
Yep.
Luckily, one of them has been replaced by another comic shop. I don't know if it's the same people or what, but
Anyway.
either way, you're not going to be stepping into just corporate zone.
Exactly.
You're stepping into a place where somebody there genuinely cares about what they sell, what they are doing, and want you to be comfortable and to know what you're getting into.
And as long as you come, one thing that a lot of comic shop people that I know say is that people will come in judging them. If you go in and you're not trying to judge people for working there,
Sure.
it's going to go a lot better.
Yeah.
So be kind to them and they'll be kind to you.
It's just like any retail experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just this a general stigma.
Not
stigmata.
general
That's a different
stigmata.
thing.
Oh, my hands!
Yeah, be prepared for that when you go to a comic shop. They're going to stab you through the hands. No, there's a general stigma about this specific product that they sell at these shops.
I can't. I'm all of a sudden reminded of when you said cervix experience on
How many
stage.
times are we going to bring that up on the Nerdy Gritty? That's like 3 now, man. That's all right. I genuinely was not embarrassed when that happened.
But I mean, I don't think it was embarrassing. I think it was just funny.
It was funny.
Yeah.
I addressed it and moved on.
Yeah.
Haven't had nobody else talk to me about it. Beside you douche.
It's just because I understand so much.
You've been there.
Yeah, I've been there.
Maybe
exactly.
not specifically there, but anyway, yeah. So go into it with a just a genuine, like, they care about they care about you. They want you to feel comfortable.
Right.
So that's really going to help. Go to a shop and just ask for help.
Secondly, I'd say that if you know where you want to start, if you say, I want to start with Spider-Man,
Yes.
or I want to start with fill-in-the-blank character, YouTube is a great resource.
100%, yeah.
It really is. There are a lot of people like the Comic Storian or Comic Books Explained, a lot of really big YouTube channels that they will have this character explained in half an hour.
Yeah.
And you hit play and you watch it for half an hour and you get all the basics that you need to be able to jump in. So, and here's the really cool thing is if you do this, a lot of times you can, for the fun of it, go down a rabbit hole. And you went for that half-hour explanation, and next thing you know, you've been sitting in front of YouTube for 3 hours and you know everything about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Awesome, rad.
That's great. Yep.
You know, and there have been writers over time that have written really, really great, really fascinating stories about these characters, and you can get real quick introductions of that, and now you know, hey, that was an important story about Batman. Hush is a big deal in the Batman lore.
Yeah.
And you can go buy the Hush collected works, the graphic novel,
Sure.
and you get a really great story, a really great starting point, and you're off.
Yeah. I want to have a section where we talk about non-superheroes, but that's really going to be the big thing right now because of the MCU, all that stuff.
Yes.
So one thing I'll say about superhero comic books, don't worry about canon. Don't worry about lore. Don't worry about
The
any
writers
of that.
don't.
Well, sure. No, that's kind of my point.
Yeah.
Is, hey, there is something called Marvel 1602, originally written by Neil Gaiman, one of the greatest comic book authors of all time. And it is specifically the Marvel Universe, but in the 1600s, in 1602. And it has these characters kind of reimagined in that way. It's an excellent story. It has nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe or any other universe in Marvel. But it's a really fun read. And in fact, my wife, who is not a comic book enthusiast, she does not read comics except for time to time when I, share some with her. She reads Wonder Woman every once in a while, but she enjoyed it because she likes that it has like Queen Elizabeth in it, or some queen in it, whatever. And she enjoyed the aesthetic. She enjoyed the context which these characters were put into, and despite the fact that she had never read anything about Daredevil, who's a pretty major character in it, or Doctor Strange, she understood who they were and really enjoyed that comic. So don't worry about whether or not the book you're going to read is the main Spider-Man, or is just some weird offshoot Spider-Man, or just if you enjoy reading it, it does not matter.
Right.
It's not really about keeping track of everything that's going on, because that's going to break your brain and your wallet.
Absolutely.
Because comics can get expensive.
And so on that note of canon and things like that, along with YouTube, a wiki can really be a really good friend to you in this. In fact, when I got into comics, I got into X-Men first thing, and I struggled a little bit at first because there was no internet at the time. That wasn't really a thing.
Everybody struggled before the internet.
Right. But X-Men, if you guys don't know this, have had hundreds of people as part of the team over the years.
Hundreds would be small. Thousands.
Yeah, and it's just been insane. And so I remember getting into it in the 90s. And then as time passed and the internet started to become a little more common and Wikipedia became a thing, I would just sit there and read, and I'd have literally 15, 20 tabs open at a time because, ooh, I want to read about that character. Ooh, I want to read about that character. Now, you can sit there and you can read the entire article, or what happened for me a lot was I'd be reading and somebody would mention a name, and I'd have no idea who that name was.
There you go.
I look it up on Wiki. There's even a Marvel Wiki now, and I read that introductory paragraph.
Oh, okay,
This
that's
is
who that is.
Like, oh, cool, that makes sense now.
Sure.
And then you move on.
That's simple.
And it's 8 sentences more, and now you're educated.
Yeah.
And it's really, really easy to have that opportunity and that available to you to be able to just get that quick information, and now you are in the know to be able to keep reading.
Yeah. Another major thing, here's where we'll move into non-superheroes.
Okay.
You guys should realize that comic books are not just superheroes. We've talked about this a lot, and we had a specific episode.
We have an episode a while back on comic books that aren't about superheroes.
Yeah, moving beyond the superhero.
With a friend of mine who actually works in a comic book shop named Chandra Jenkins. She is also getting her doctorate in English literature.
Yep.
And so she is really, really well-versed in like good writing and good characterization and things like that. And so we talked for a while about great comic books that have nothing to do with superheroes.
Yeah, I mean, it has proliferated lately, like the medium of the comic, but non-superhero comics have existed longer than superhero comics.
Right.
They originally were really more for like pulpy, like detective kind of things. Horror was
like
a
that.
huge thing.
Yeah.
A reason why the Comics Code Authority and censorship started happening was because they were really kind of a cesspool. Like legitimately, like content got real gross.
Yeah.
But then superheroes have also existed. But lately, because of the just general, like what's good for the superhero genre is good for the rest of comics as well.
Right.
Because people are now getting into the medium. It's like, I only like if somebody reads Harry Potter, that's their first book series, then they're going to be more inclined to read other books. And maybe not even just books about wizards, they'll move into something, like it's just once you get introduced into a world, if that becomes your hobby, you will then, can expand outward. So, yeah, starting with superheroes is a great place, but realize that that's not the only thing out there. Some of the greatest comic books ever written are not about superheroes.
Right.
Or at least not in the way we consider superheroes these days. You have things like The Sandman or Watchmen or basically anything Alan Moore has ever written. But as well as like historical fiction, you have things like Mouse, which is one of my favorite books of all. It's 2 books of all time. It's by... dang it, I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry. But it's a comic about a author wanting to write. Okay, it's about a man interviewing his father's father about his experience in Auschwitz and the Holocaust, and it's both about that story that he's telling, his father is telling, and about the process of interviewing his father, and you get to see like how his father's experiences have changed him and turned him into the man he is today. So instead of just seeing a cranky old tightwad man, you see a man who suffered horribly and lost his family. It's Maus if you don't know.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it's spelled Maus, by the way. But it's about seeing a man growing up through the Holocaust, suffering horribly, and having to hold on to every possible thing he can imagine because anything is of value when it's being taken from you. And so now he's, not just cranky old man, it's man who suffered this trauma and as well as trying to like hold on to anything that he values because it could get taken away. That kind of like, and it has nothing to do with Iron Man punching somebody. It's a great story, and there's a whole lot like that out there.
I Googled finally. I found it. Chandra actually talked about one specifically called March.
Yes.
About the civil rights movement.
It's pretty recent.
Yeah, and it is again just a really well done.
It was written, if I'm not mistaken, or at least he had a big impact on it. You can probably find his name. He's the House Judiciary Oversight Committee chairman, I think, right now in the. What are names?
Lewis is what I see a Lewis here. Let me see.
Yeah, find the author.
Yep.
It's about his interactions. What's the names on there?
John Lewis.
That might be it.
Civil rights leader and U.S. Congressman John Lewis.
There you go. Yeah. I think he's part of the Judiciary Committee in the House of. Anyway. But yeah, it's about his interactions and like part that he played in the civil rights movement with not JFK, MLK Jr. And that's a comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of stigma, we also need to get beyond the idea that it's just stories for babies who like people punching each other.
Right.
It is a medium of writing. It is a medium of art.
So on that note specifically, one thing I'll say is make getting into the comics easy on yourself.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, number one, pick a genre that you're going to like.
Yeah.
Don't say everybody likes superheroes and so I want to like superheroes. Don't do that. You wouldn't do that with movies. You wouldn't do that with a book. You wouldn't be like, everybody likes this, so I'm going to try to read this book that I don't want to read.
That I don't care about.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, judge something by its cover. Right. I think it's perfectly fair to do.
Absolutely do. And then second of all, find an artist that you like.
Yeah.
Art is just as much a part of comic books as the writing is.
They're equally important in the medium.
And that's why this medium to me is so important and so unique, because it takes a visual artist and a
written word,
and it marries them together into a single piece of art. Like, it's people working together to create a single piece of art, and it's so beautiful in that way. And so find art that you like. Don't, just because a story's good, if the art is bad, you're gonna struggle. Like, I struggled with Superman Batman Volume 1. It was Ed McGuinness was the artist for that.
Sure.
And I just wasn't a fan of the art. Like, Ed McGuinness, to me, is a very comic booky type artist. Like, it's real cartoony.
Who drew the Long Halloween?
Long Halloween was Jeff Loeb.
Jeff Loeb was the
Jeff Loeb was the writer.
It was I know this. I struggle with whoever that is. Tim Sale. Tim Sale. I struggle with Tim Sale's art style. And that's to show you a story can be great, but if you have to look at an art style that's like hard for you to get used to or just bad to you,
right?
I don't particularly like comic book art styles that are what I call cartoony. I like a little realism. I like when when it looks like it's an actual like drawn out sketch of something rather than a digital, picture,
right?
Of something. That doesn't mean that I won't read anything that doesn't look that way, but that's what I prefer, and it really helps a story go a long way when the art is good, fun to look at. A great example of this is also Alex Ross. Alex Ross, I mean, he's such a good artist. He paints everything, literally paints everything that he art. Yeah. So when there's something that's Alex Ross, when they hire Alex Ross to do the art for a book, it's going to be a great story.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that it is so cool to look at. Like, to just appreciate the realism in there. Things like Kingdom Come or Justice or Marvel Eye of the Camera. No, that might be something else. Anytime you see Alex Ross, it's going to be worth reading.
Yep. Yeah.
He's that great. I have a few more practical things.
Go ahead, do your practical things, and then I want to, after that, let's do just our suggestions.
Yeah, suggestions would be great. Here's a few practical things real quick. Start by doing trade paperbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Don't jump in with single issues. The price will add up really quickly. You have to wait a month in between each issue, which for me, I don't like doing that very much.
Unless you do weeklies, which
unless
even
you do
then, if
weeklies,
you're doing weeklies,
you still have to
so
wait.
much more money. Yeah,
and unless you're a collector like I am, it's do a trade paperback. A trade paperback is going to be a collection of a story arc, usually 6 to 8 issues, maybe 5, maybe 4 sometimes, depending on the length. But it's going to be a story arc. It doesn't mean it's the entire series, but it's going to have a beginning, middle, and end. And that's really what you need in a good story. It can lead into more things. So start doing that. It's going to be cheaper overall. Typically, you're going to pay $15 rather than $4 or $5 per issue. So you'll generally can save $10, $15. Specifically, Image Comics, though, what they do with Volume 1 of every series they have is it's $10.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. They specifically charge less for the first volume of any series. I'm going to shout out to The Beauty, which is an Image Comics series, which is written by, he's the owner of the shop I used to go to in Joplin, Missouri. Just quick synopsis. Basically, there is now an STD that makes you look very attractive. And the only side effect is a small fever, but constantly. You have a constant small fever, but it makes you look attractive. You lose weight, your skin gets clear, your hair becomes nicer look, it just makes you attractive. And so there's a whole part of society who intentionally contract this because they want to look good.
Right.
And it's just kind of goes on from there. But yeah, that's a good place to start. They have good series. They are not a comic or a superhero really kind of thing. They're kind of independent, do mostly other kinds of stories, but it's a cheaper way to get into it. Another practical thing when it comes to single issues to me are the worst part about comics. It's kind of from a bygone era when it was more about ads in your books rather than the story you're telling.
Well,
a lot of times
when things were meant to be episodic, but now it's like Netflix and streaming services.
Sure,
episodic things are becoming more of a thing in the past.
Right, and so I would say unless you are a collector, legitimately want to collect a series and like the alternate covers of it, and have it as your collection or maybe even to sell later down the line, stay away from them. It's to me not super worth it to just get every issue of a thing that you've read.
Yeah, I would recommend finding a trade paperback that's like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Picking that up, and then when you're done with it, get the next one in the storyline, and then get the next one in the storyline.
Yeah.
And you'll have several queued up because you got one that was 5 years old. So you have the next several years worth of collections.
Because remember, just because it's not current doesn't mean it's not a good story to read.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be the most, modern thing to be interesting. Comic characters reboot all the time.
They do.
They retcon things all the time. Originally, Iron Man, when he was captured by enemies, it was in Vietnam. And obviously, they've updated him. They've retconned him in every major war that the U.S. has been a part of in the history of Iron Man comics. Yes, they have.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so don't worry about it. You're going to get the general same themes from everything. So pick something that looks cool and start there. Do trade paperbacks. You'll save yourself money and a headache of having to wait a month to read the next 1/6 of the story you have.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot more, a lot of little practical things that you'll learn along the way. But those are some major things. So yeah, I think we should get into some recommendations.
So my first recommendation for you guys, if you want to get into superhero comics and you watched the Batman the Animated Series of the 90s, Hush is a fantastic book to start with.
Yeah, Hush is great.
It introduces a brand new character entirely within the book itself, and so you will the character itself, there will be no secrets. You'll learn it all as it goes.
Yeah.
Then other than that, they have a lot of familiar faces. They use a lot of familiar faces that you will know, recognize, and love from the animated series. and the whole story itself is fantastic. The art is one of the best in the business, Jim Lee, and he is just fantastic. And the story is one of the best in the business, Jeff Loeb, and he is also just a fantastic writer. So Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee, just this dynamic duo of great, great writing. And the book, because of it, is one of the top-notch books. So again, if you are looking for superhero comics and you liked Batman as a kid, then I say pick up Hush. It's a great book to start with.
I'm going to go with Thor. I believe it's Thor, God of Thunder, specifically. When Jason Aaron, the author, started writing Thor, read that. It is still basically the Thor of Marvel Comics, but it has nothing to do with the Marvel Universe. He might interact here and there, if I remember correctly, but it's about him doing Thor type things. It involves time travel, but in a cool, interesting way. It's very heavy metal, like Norse mythology type stuff. It's a very, very, very good series. In fact, I saw he was going to be at a convention that I was at in Kansas City one time, and so this was before he was major author guy. He's now the one writing War of the Realms. Like, he is the big guy at Marvel right now. But he just had like a little small booth, and this was after he started writing Thor, and there was nobody there. I went and found that series, the #1 issue, for like a couple bucks, and went and had him sign it. So now I have a #1 of Jason Aaron's Thor,
nice,
signed by him.
That's awesome.
Which is probably way more valuable now than it was back then. But no, it's a great series because it didn't rely, like you said, didn't rely on a lot of preconceived knowledge about the Marvel Universe. It was just a fun story about Thor, and Thor is one of my favorites.
Yeah. I'll also toss in the Rebirth series for DC. You can get the collected works, and the stories are good. They're not the best that have ever been around,
No.
but they're good stories. They are. But I recommend them because they specifically were made with the intention of starting over.
That is, in DC history, maybe the second or first time they have it's the most recent universe-spanning reboot of everything.
Right.
Now, it doesn't really. They kind of lied about it.
No, they tie it into old stuff for
Yes.
real. But
yes, and it's very frustrating. And specifically Doomsday Clock right now, which is still going on, by the way, even though it's been over a year. More than that, it's taken a very long time. That's actually kind of still explaining how it all connects.
right.
But it's still a good place to start.
Right. They explain a lot for you, and they go
Yes.
into a lot of the history for you.
Yeah.
And so you won't need to do a lot of searching and reading. There will be some that you'll need to do, some small explanations here and there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they expect you to not have a knowledge of stuff, and they explain a lot of it out for you. So it's an easy place to pick up at.
Yeah. One last superhero recommendation. Go read the Civil War series.
Yes.
From Marvel.
Yes.
To me, one of the greatest superhero storylines ever written. Like I said before, it talks about, obviously you get lots of superheroes fighting each other. But it's about more than that. Just like the MCU version of it, I think they did a really good job of kind of communicating the idea, where it's not really just about superheroes. It's about moral imperative to fight bad guys, or who watches the Watchmen, essentially, who should be in control, should superheroes be part of the government, all these kind of things. It has a lot of really good intimate storylines, like Spider-Man. I won't explain what happens, but he has some genuine character moments that are really significant, as well as the ending was very significant for the Marvel Universe itself, and also for the characters in it. So go read that. You can get the main series is just in one collected. It's by Mark Miller, just in one trade paperback, and then there's every single character basically has their own side story involved. Wolverine's is pretty cool too.
As far as not superhero comic books, I would recommend, and this is quote unquote not superhero, but Watchmen. Watchmen does have kind of superhero themes to it.
It's not a superhero comic book,
but it's not
as you
about
would
going to
typically
punch
think.
people or anything like that. It's not about who's the most powerful.
There's very little action.
Right. It's much more just like a political commentary, and very reflective of our times and the times that it's trying to talk of. And it's really well done, really, really well written, and great art as well.
If you ever find a top 10 comic books you need to read, or whatever top 10 greatest graphic, it will be on there.
It'll be on there for sure.
It'll be on there. That's also, I mean, I guess just as a quick another piece of advice, find those. Find a list of the top 50 graphic novels and then read them.
Yep.
They're recommended for a reason, and they'll give you a lot. Some of them will be superheroes. Most of them won't be. As far as outside comic book realm, Neil Gaiman's my favorite living author. Specifically
outside superhero realm.
Yeah. What?
You said outside of the comic book realm.
Outside the superhero realm of comic books.
Right.
Neil Gaiman is one of my favorite, is my favorite living author, largely because of his series called The Sandman.
Yes.
Started in 1987.
It's really good.
Went on for 75 issues. It is, in general ideas, a horror series, but not really.
No.
Like, that's kind of how it started.
There is one chunk of the book that
very early on, there's an issue called 24 Hours, and it makes you feel gross for reading it. But it's well written. Yes.
The art is well done.
It is the definition of horror.
I read it through it, I think twice, and now whenever I read it, I literally skip over that part.
Yeah.
I just can't anymore. Ugh.
So, but The Sandman is about dream. He is the personification of dreaming, storytelling, lots of different things. It gets more complicated, and it's about basically I think Neil Gaiman, he put it in a one sentence. It was the Lord of Dreams is forced to make a choice, or is forced to choose between changing and dying, and makes his choice. Mm-hmm. And that's a very general idea, but it's true. It's a very good. It incorporates a lot of like outside literature into it. There's a couple issues where one of them is called A Midsummer's Night Dream. It's so good, award-winning issue where
I love that one.
The cast basically it's about Shakespeare and his actors putting on a performance of A Midsummer's Night Dream for the actual like realm of fairy.
Yeah.
So the characters that are in A Midsummer's Night Dream are watching these actors put on a play about them, and it's so fun. But yeah, it spans genres, it spans like universes. There's a huge Sandman universe kind of thing now. Now it's literally called that, but that's my huge collection is trying to get everything within the Sandman universe. But that's my major recommendation for outside superheroes.
Awesome. Well, guys, let us know what you think. If you're a big comic book fan, what you think a good starting place should be.
Or a small comic book fan.
If you like small comic books,
right,
that you have through magnifying glasses,
Cracker Jack boxes.
If you like Bazooka Joe comics,
real niche genre.
No, if you're a comic book fan and you have some recommendations on how people who are unfamiliar with the craft can get into it, please share that in the comments or let us know what you think. Or if you're somebody brand new to comics and you take our advice, let us know how it worked. Let us know where you want to get started, or if you have any questions for us, please feel free to ask.
If you're somebody that actually knows us, ask for, like, we will let you borrow our books.
We really will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
we're happy to spread that love. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for your support. Again, remember that if you enjoyed this, sharing, liking, all that stuff, rating us really helps get the word out there. You guys are cool. We appreciate you. And remember, save games, save lives.
Bye.